Alright, so this is going to be my MCU movie ranking. I'm going to try to keep this as brief as I can while also, giving you enough information. And I also want to preface this by saying that I'm not a very good critic or very good at like actually talking about movies, but I'm just going to give you my thoughts, but I'm not very good at, actually giving a detailed review of this stuff. But with that being said, let's get started. So starting off with number 36 is going to be The Eternals with a score of 63. Rotten Tomatoes score, as you can see on the top right here, the critics gave it a 47, the audience gave it a 77. I'm close to the middle there. I don't think it was horrible, but it's definitely not good, right? In the realm of MCU movies, it definitely is horrible in comparison, right? But still, as a standalone movie, it's not like awful, but it's definitely not good. So you got a bunch of stuff on the screen here. You got our synopsis, our plot, our finale. So talking about the finale or the final battle and stuff. Then you got my personal thoughts. I'm only going to be voicing my thoughts because, the rest of this stuff is basically just for you guys to remember what the movie is about. If you want to read that yourself, you can. If not, you can just listen to me, and that's fine. But my thoughts of this movie, right? I thought it was very forgettable. The story and the characters are both very forgettable. I would have liked it to be a show because we would have been able to spend a lot more time with the characters individually, because there's like 10 main characters of this movie that have just got introduced in this movie, right? Having that many main characters that are brand new, right? And trying to fit it all into a 2.5-hour movie is not great because we don't really know these characters, right? So being able to make this into a show would have probably, like a 6 or 8 episode show, would have given us a lot more time, right? At least like 4 hours of content, ideally, would have given us a lot more time to be able to connect with these characters a little bit more. But overall, it's also very bland and very slow paced. So these are the main characters that we had here. We got Ajax, Icarus, who's a villain. You got Cersei, you got Athena, you got Phastos, and you got Gilgamesh. And you also got Kingo, Makari, Druig, Sprite, who's also a villain, but she kind of just piggybacks off of Icarus. And then you have Crow, who's our Deviant, which is like the main villain, and Sprite and Icarus are within our hero group, kind of, but then they also kind of turn out to be villains. But that's it for this one. Next up is number 35, The Incredible Hulk, with the score of 67. So the critics gave it a 68. The audience gave it a 69. So we're all relatively right around the same area right there. Just 1 point difference between each of us. We all pretty much agree that it's okay. It's there. Definitely a step up from Eternals, but again, it's still not great. So getting into my thoughts here, definitely a pretty bland story, kind of like Eternals, right? Some memorable characters like the Hulk, obviously. Everyone knows the Hulk. And then you got guys like Samuel Stearns, who some of you may not remember, but I think he's pretty memorable. And then, of course, Thunderbolt Ross is memorable. I don't know how to say that word. Memorable, sorry. And then you got Emil Blonsky / The Abomination. I feel like he's a pretty memorable villain as well. But again, the plot itself was pretty poorly handled, right? There's previous Hulk movies that came out in like the 90s or something. I don't know. I know there's one previous Hulk movie that I enjoyed a lot better than this one. So I think, again, Hulk is definitely something that can work as a good movie, but they just did not really handle the plot of this movie very well. Next up is going to be our characters here. We got Hulk / Bruce Banner, of course, Abomination / Emil Blonsky. You got Dr. Betty Ross. You got Thunderbolt Ross, Samuel Stearns, and Leonard Samson. Now moving on to number 34 is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania with a score of 69. Nice. The critics gave it a 46. The audience gave it an 81. So I'm kind of relatively in the middle there. I'm not really sure what the audience is thinking. 81, I feel like, is like they actually like really enjoyed it. Not like amazing, but they thoroughly enjoyed it, right? I definitely did not thoroughly enjoy this movie. The critics hate on it a little bit too much for my liking, but again, I just kind of have a baseline with MCU stuff, and I don't like to rate things that low just in general. So I definitely see where the critics are coming from, even though my number is closer to the audience, right? But again, we'll get into my thoughts right here. So I thought it had a solid start with good characters, of course. I love the Ant-Man characters, right? Definitely bad CGI, like especially with MODOK. MODOK just he looks like Mr. Um, Mr. Electric from Shark Boy and Lava Girl, right? It doesn't look good. Okay, it has a very low back half. The first half I thought was decent. Back half definitely brings it down. Kind of has a modern Star Wars feel. Like a Star Wars feel in general is fine, but a modern Star Wars feel, not very good. And that's kind of what this movie had me feeling a little bit. And also, we'll get into our characters here. But our characters, you got Scott Lang, Cassie Lang, Hank Pym, Janet Van Dyne, Hope Van Dyne, and then Kang the Conqueror, who's our villain. He's supposed to be this big bad villain of this next phase, of this next saga of the MCU, or at least he was, of course, when this movie came out. But this movie, he didn't really pose that big of a threat. He was defeated by Ant-Man and their crew here, so I don't know how he was ever supposed to be a Avengers level threat when he's losing to Ant-Man, right? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But moving on here to number 33 is Thor: Love and Thunder with a score of a 70. The critics gave it a 63, the audience a 76, and then I'm right there in the middle of those two once again. So I'm kind of like in the middle of the critics and audience quite a bit, and you'll see that later on as well. But getting on to my thoughts here personally, I thought it had a solid story with good characters. I love Thor and I love Jane as individual characters. I don't like that Jane has powers though, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't really like it. Right. I also don't like the ending where the kids get the powers to defeat Gore. I like Gore as a villain, but I don't like the way he was defeated. It just doesn't. It's not that cool. I wanted to mostly see Thor and Gore battle it out. Maybe you got Thor and Korg and Valkyrie as well. We'll get into our characters here. You got Thor, Jane Foster, Valkyrie, and Korg. Then you got Zeus, who's kind of a villainish, but not really our main villain. And then Gore the God Butcher is our main villain. I thought he was a pretty good villain. But again, I would have loved to see like a final battle with Thor, Valkyrie, and Korg, kind of battling Gore the God Butcher. You can incorporate Jane in there some way, but I feel like not the way she was. I don't like Jane the Mighty Thor, whatever she's getting called now, but I don't like how this looks on her, dude. But yeah, moving on from there, we got number 32, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, with a score of 78. So a very big jump up from Wakanda Forever, from Thor: Love and Thunder, but the critics gave it an 84 and the audience gave it a 93. I definitely think they overrated it quite a bit. Part of that, I feel like they might have overrated it just because of the nature of what this movie is, right? Because if it would have had T'Challa in it, Chadwick Boseman, it probably would have been a better movie, but they kind of had to scrap that and rewrite the whole thing because, of course, he passed away during production. So they had to redo the whole movie, and I definitely think it took a step down from what it would have been. Obviously, I don't know what it would have been, but just judging from how good the first Black Panther was, I definitely had high hopes for this one. But this movie definitely underperformed those hopes because, of course, Chadwick Boseman is not in it. My personal thoughts. I thought we had a fun story, good characters, underwhelming villain, and it definitely drags. So again, the story itself is fine. I like most of the characters in this movie, but our villain is pretty underwhelming, and it drags a lot, like a lot. It feels way too long. I feel like nothing is happening in this movie. I would have liked this probably to be like 20 to 30 minutes shorter, and it probably would have been a lot more enjoyable for me personally. But getting into our characters here, we got Queen Ramonda, you got Ironheart, which I'm kind of excited about her show that comes out soon. You got Shuri, you got M'Baku, you got Namor, who's our villain, and then you got Okoye. Number 31 is going to be Black Widow with a score of a 79, just 1 point ahead of Wakanda Forever. The critics gave it a 79, so I matched them exactly, and the audience gave it a 91. I was kind of surprised to see the audience that enjoyed it that much, because I remember watching this, and I remember hearing reviews about it, and people were underwhelmed. I don't feel like people really had that high of hopes coming into this movie, but again, I still feel like people didn't necessarily love it as much as the audience score would suggest. But moving on to my personal thoughts here, I thought we had a solid story, good action, great characters. It was pretty slow paced, and the back half definitely drags. The whole movie honestly kind of drags a little bit, but specifically the back half. I do like the characters though. Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff, of course, Yelena Belova, Red Guardian. I like all those guys, but just something about this movie. When I originally tried to watch this on Disney Plus, I tried to watch it like 3 different times. and I fell asleep every time. It's like it was a struggle to get me to actually stay awake through the entire movie, and that's not exactly what you want to see from an MCU movie or from any movie in general. But our main characters here, we got Natasha Romanoff, Milena Belova, Milena Vostokov, Alexei Shostakov, Taskmaster, who's our villain. I love Taskmaster as a villain. Then you got Dreykov as well, he's fine as well. Number 30 is going to be Thor: The Dark World, with a score of an 80. Critics gave it a 67, audience a 75. So I definitely enjoyed it more than they did, but I definitely understand where they're coming from. Like, it's definitely not top tier MCU, nowhere near that. It's definitely lower tier MCU, which I still have. Even though an 80 is a pretty good ranking, this is still the 7th worst MCU movie in my ranking. So like, I obviously didn't enjoy it all that much, but getting into my personal thoughts here, I think it has a solid story with good action, a mid villain though, good characters, and I do like the Thor Jane dynamic. I love both of those characters, right? And I love their relationship, especially in this movie. Looking at our characters individually, we got Thor, Jane Foster, we got Loki, who's in the movie and definitely villainish, but he's not really the main villain here. You got Malekith is our main villain, and Malekith is kind of boring. He's not a great villain, but you do get Odin and you get Fandral in here, which I think those are solid characters in this movie. Next up is number 29, The Marvels, with a score of an 83. Critics gave it a 62 and the audience gave it a 79, so I'm a little bit ahead of the audience, but I'm a lot ahead of the critics. I don't know why the critics didn't like this one as much, but I do feel like the critics just generally do not like Captain Marvel as a character or any of the stuff she's in general, right? They didn't like the first Captain Marvel movie. They don't like this movie. They don't like her role in Endgame. Like, they just don't like Captain Marvel for whatever reason. One thing I do want to say is this movie was only an hour and 45 minutes. I feel like I'm pretty sure that is the shortest runtime for any MCU movie, which is kind of something worth noting at least. But my personal thoughts: fun story, great characters, good action with a weak villain. If we would have had a better villain, this movie could have been a lot higher on my list. But I like the story itself. I like how all three of them get entangled together. I love each character individually. I liked all these characters from previous projects they were in, and it does have pretty good action in here as well. And then again, our main characters are, of course, Carol Danvers, Monica Rambeau, and Kamala Khan. Then you got Dar-Benn as our villain. You got Nick Fury, which who doesn't love Nick Fury if you're not talking about a specific project that we'll talk about at a later time. And then you got Prince Yan, who's in this movie but not really a main character, but I just threw him in here. The next up is number 28, Ant-Man, with a score of an 84. Critics gave it an 83. Audience gave it an 85. Again, I'm right there in the middle of these two guys, but they pretty much agreed. They're just 2 points off, so we all pretty much agree that it was pretty solid. But next up is my thoughts personally. Good story, good action, great humor. The Ant-Man movies, Quantumania isn't that funny, but the Ant-Man movies just in general are pretty funny. Paul Rudd's hilarious, right? So there is great humor, great characters. Again, I mentioned earlier that I love pretty much all the Ant-Man characters, and this one actually has a pretty good villain in it as well. So looking into our characters, you got Ant-Man, aka Scott Lang, you got Hope Van Dyne, you got Hank Pym, you got Cassie Lang, you got Yellow Jacket as our villain, and then you got Luis, he's really funny in this movie as well. That's kind of his specialty, though. He's a comedy dude. But yeah, moving on from here, we got Captain America: Brave New World at number 27 with a score of 84.5. So I do get into some decibels here because there's just too many movies that I think are really good. So I can't be going whole numbers for everything, but 84.5 is where this one stands. Critics gave it an 85, so I'm pretty much right there with them, and the audience gave it a 92. So they actually really enjoyed it more than I thought they would, because again, I feel like the general consensus of this movie when I look at reviews, right, and again, some of that is critic reviews, not fan reviews, but still, it's like they didn't enjoy it like all that much, but they thought it was good, but not great. 92 makes me think that it was great, but whatever. Moving on to my personal thoughts. Good story, good action, solid mystery. I do like the mystery in this one a lot. I'm a sucker for anything mystery, pretty much. Great characters and a good villain, and it definitely feels like a Hulk movie. Well, it's definitely not a Captain America movie at the heart because, of course, there's no Steve Rogers. But it definitely feels like a Hulk follow-up because you do have Thunderbolt Ross, of course, being a main part of this one like he was in the Hulk movie. Then you got Samuel Stearns as our main villain. We'll get into that here. Samuel Stearns as our main villain, who also was a big time character in the Incredible Hulk. So it's very interesting that we kind of get like a Hulk follow-up movie in Captain America: Brave New World, but it's really fun. Our main characters, you got Sam Wilson, Thaddeus Ross, Joaquin Torres, Samuel Stearns, Isaiah Bradley, and Sabra. Not sure if I said that right, but oh well. Next up is number 26, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, with a score of 85. Critics gave it a 92, audience gave it a 98. I gave it an 85. I definitely did not like it as much as they did. A 98 is insane. Okay, I'm going to tell you that right now. A 98 is insane. But, whatever. We'll get into my personal thoughts right now. Good story, great action, good mystery. There was a rushed finale, though. I do like the villain. He's alright. And there's a great final battle. I do love the final battle, but again, the entire just third act feels very, very rushed. It's like, oh, the movie's almost over. We got to wrap things up. And I like the final battle, but aside from that, the finale doesn't seem very. I just don't like it. It seems very rushed. Doesn't seem very well thought out and stuff like that. But getting into our characters here, we got Shang-Chi, we got Katie, we got Zhu Wenwu, which is his dad. As the villain, we got Ji Xiaoling, which is his sister. Ying Nan, I think is his aunt, and then Ying Li, I believe, was his mother. Number 25 is going to be Iron Man 1, with a score of 85.25. Critics gave it a 94, audience gave it a 91. I definitely feel like they overrated it, and part of that is probably because it's the first MCU movie, so people look back on it and be like, wow, this was the first movie? It's really good. It's awesome. I'm like, yeah, it's all right. I mean, 85 is still a good number, but like, in the broad scope of the MCU, like, it's not that good. Right? People, I think, overrate it because they love Robert Downey Jr., which that's fine. But they also just, I think, overrate it because it is the first of its kind. But moving into my thoughts, good story, amazing action. It does have amazing action. One of the best action sequences, some of the best action sequences in the entire MCU, which being able to have that from your first movie is definitely worth noting. There's also great actors. Of course, Robert Downey Jr. is amazing, but the villain is pretty mid, right? Going into our characters, you got Iron Man, Happy Hogan, Pepper Potts, Christine Everhart, which basically the only thing she does is bang Iron Man, so that's cool, I guess. We got James Rhodes, and then we got Ironmonger as our villain. Yeah, but that's it for this one. Getting on to our next movie, Iron Man 2, with a score of 85.5, so I think it's just slightly better than the first movie. The critics and audience definitely don't agree. They have it a 72 and a 71 respectively. I mean, personally, I think they're pretty much interchangeable, but obviously, according to Rotten Tomatoes, Iron Man 2 is significantly worse than the first one, which again, obviously, I don't agree with here. My personal thoughts. Good story, great action, good mystery, good villain, and great acting. So pretty similar to the first one, like I mentioned, but I do think this has a better villain, and it has a better mystery aspect to it as well, which again, I mentioned earlier that I'm kind of a sucker for mystery. But getting into our characters here, of course, you got Iron Man, Happy Hogan, Pepper Potts. We have James Rhodes once again, who is now recasted as Don Cheadle, which I love Don Cheadle, but I didn't mind the other guy, right? But you know, whatever. Don Cheadle has obviously been the more memorable, guy because he's been within the MCU for longer. But then our villains here, we have Whiplash and we have Justin Hammer. Next up is number 23, Deadpool and Wolverine, with a score of 86. Critics gave it a 78, audience a 94. I'm right in the middle there. I would say the audience probably overrated it just because it's a Deadpool movie and it cusses and has a lot of inappropriate jokes, and they're like, oh, I love that. I love inappropriate jokes and I love cuss words. I love this movie. I'm like, yeah, it's great. I mean, it's fun. Like, it does add some humor to it, but like, it doesn't make the movie like amazing just because it cusses sometimes. It's like, whatever. But getting into my thoughts here. Good story, great action, amazing humor. Again, I do love the humor, right? Amazing acting. Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are phenomenal, right? And it has a pretty good villain in this one as well. Actually, two good villains. But moving on from here, we have Deadpool, of course, Wolverine. We got Pete Wisdom, which Pete Wisdom is a GOAT right there. You got Mr. Paradox, who's a pretty solid villain within the TVA. You got Laura. Then you have Cassandra Nova, who I really, really enjoy her in this movie as well. Next up is number 22, Thor, with a score of 86.25. Critics gave it a 77. Audience gave it a 76. I'm about 10 points higher than they are, but not too far off, right? It's still, I thought it was very, very enjoyable. But again, I love Thor just in general, and I love all the Thor characters. I love Jane Foster. And I feel like I might just be overrating it a little bit because I have a personal attachment just to all these guys. I just love everything about Thor more than the average person probably does. Moving into my personal thoughts here, you got great story, solid action, solid mystery, amazing acting, and an amazing villain. I love the acting in this one, right? Who doesn't love Chris Hemsworth and Natalie Portman, right? Come on now. Amazing villain, I mean, it's Loki. Loki's one of the best villains in the MCU. I know he does obviously have more movies where he's a villain, like the first Avengers movie, but he's definitely a villain in this one, and he's great. So moving on to my thoughts here, or my characters here, sorry. You got Thor, Odin, Loki, who's our villain, like I just mentioned. You got Jane Foster. You got Darcy Lewis, which I also love Darcy Lewis. Then you got Eric Selvig, who's really cool as well. But yeah, next up is Iron Man 3 with a score of 86.5. Critics gave it a 79. Audience gave it a 78. So if you're paying attention, Rotten Tomatoes pretty much has Iron Man 1, Iron Man 3, Iron Man 2. While I personally have Iron Man 3, Iron Man 2, Iron Man 1. The only thing we agree on is that Iron Man 3 is better than Iron Man 2, which, I mean, yeah. But, like, I don't know why they don't like it as much as Iron Man 1. Again, couldn't tell you. But, personal thoughts. Great story, great action, great acting, a good mystery, and a good villain twist. Again, they're all pretty similar, right? They're all relatively around the same number. I do think what makes each movie better than the last one is the villain, right? Iron Man 2's villain is better than Iron Man 1's villain. Iron Man 3's villain, I think, is, kind of on par with Iron Man 2's villain, but it has a twist. It has a really good villain twist in it, which definitely adds to the mystery aspect as well, and makes me enjoy this movie a little bit more than the other two. Our characters here, we have Iron Man, Happy Hogan, Pepper Potts, and James Rhodes once again. Then you also have Trevor Slattery, who's a great villain, right? He's technically not even a villain. He just gets paid by our main villain, Aldrich Killian. Trevor Slattery is kind of the poser for the villain. He's kind of getting paid by Killian to act as the villain, and yeah, it is a really good twist when it happens on screen, and I love it. Next up is number 20, Black Panther, with a score of an 86.75. Critics gave it a 96, audience gave it a 79, and I'm pretty much right in the middle there. 96 is insanely high. I do understand that I'll get into my thoughts here, but I understand why it's very high. I just don't necessarily agree. Good story, amazing action, phenomenal action in this one as well. Great acting and a great villain. It's really, really good, but there's just so many Marvel movies, MCU movies that are really, really good. So this one doesn't blow me away like the other ones do, which is why I don't have it ranked so high. But I know, obviously, the critics loved it. Main characters, you got T'Challa, Killmonger, who's our villain, a great villain at that. You got Shuri, you got Okoye, you got Ulysses Claw, who's definitely villainish in this one, but not our main villain. Then you got M'Baku, who's really, solid as well. Number 19 is going to be Ant-Man and the Wasp with a score of an 87. Critics gave it an 87, so I matched them there, and audience gave it a 79. Personal headcanon for me. When this movie came out, my personal headcanon was that this is a top 5 MCU movie. Yeah, top 5. That was kind of crazy to say at the time, but honestly, it holds up, right? Not a top 5, obviously, but there's also been a lot of movies that have came out since this one that have definitely jumped it, and just, rewatching some stuff, it definitely isn't as good as I originally thought it was, but it is still a really, really good movie. My personal thoughts. Great story, good mystery, good humor, and a great villain. It's Ant-Man, so it has good humor. I also love all the actors, again, all the characters within Ant-Man, right? Moving on to our characters here, we have Ant-Man, we have Wasp. I love Wasp. I mean, we've had her character before, but not as Wasp. I like her as Wasp. We have Hank Pym. We got Janet Van Dyne. We have Ghost, who's our villain, and I love Ghost as a villain in this movie. I'm really glad she came back in Thunderbolts. Then you have Cassie Lang, who's, in this movie again. Next up, number 18, Doctor Strange, with a score of an 87.5. Critics gave it an 89, audience an 86. I'm right there in the middle, once again. Shocker. My personal thoughts on this movie: great story, great action. I love the trippy effects. If you understand what I'm talking about, if you watch the movie, you'll know what I mean. But like in some of the action sequences, right, they have like the mirror dimension and stuff like that, where it just looks like they're walking through like a kaleidoscope while they're having their battle. It looks amazing, right? I love that part of this movie. It has a pretty good mystery to this one as well. Characters here, of course, you got Stephen Strange, you have Wong, you have the Ancient One, you have Dr. Christine Palmer, then you got Caecilius and Dormammu as our main villains, and I do like both of them in this movie. Number 17 is going to be Captain Marvel with a score of 88. Critics give it a 79, audience a 45. So, again, the audience I feel like just hates Captain Marvel for whatever reason. I don't know why. I really love this movie. Kind of like Ant-Man and Wasp. Headcanon when this movie came out. It was a top 5 movie for me in my brain when it came out. I adored this movie in theaters. I still adore it, right? 88 is still really, really high. It's just there's a lot of stuff that is higher, but this is an amazing movie in my opinion. My personal thoughts here: great story, fun action, good mystery, good humor, great acting, and I love Nick Fury, right? Again, I love the story. The action is great. The mystery part with the villain twist stuff we'll talk about right now, actually. But we got our characters here with Carol Danvers, Nick Fury. Who doesn't love Nick Fury for not talking about one specific project that we'll talk about later? You got Talos, Yon-Rogg, and Mar-Vell as our villains. Then you got Mariah Rambeau as well. So again, the twist here is kind of like Talos is who we're supposed to think is the villain at the start. We got Carol Danvers, who's working with/for Mar-Vell and Yon-Rogg, so we think they're the good guys, we think Talos the villain. And then we learn that actually Mar-Vell and Yon-Rogg are the villains, and then Talos is the good guy, and then Carol Danvers kind of switches sides, and I really love that part. I love that story. I love the mystery within that as well. Next up is number 16, Spider-Man Far From Home, with a score of 90. Critics give it a 91, audience a 95. I'm just a little bit lower than them, but we're relatively around the same area. It's a Spider-Man movie. Who doesn't love Spider-Man, right? My thoughts personally: great story, amazing villain with a great twist, great action, and amazing acting. So we will talk about this a little bit here. Peter Parker's great acting. Tom Holland. MJ, great actor. Zendaya. Ned, I like his actor as well. I don't remember his name, but he's a great actor. Mysterio, Jake Gyllenhaal, great actor and an amazing villain. The plot twist here, the villain twist here with Mysterio is amazing, dude. Like, I was blown away when I first watched this movie. Nick Fury again's in here. Who doesn't love Samuel L. Jackson? And then, of course, Happy Hogan is in this as well, and he's cool. But next up is going to be Guardians of the Galaxy 1, which I actually have as the worst ranked Guardians of the Galaxy movie, which might be a hot take, but oh well. I give it a score of a 90.5, critics and audience with a 92, so we're all relatively around the same area once again. My personal thoughts here: great story, solid mystery, really fun characters. I love these characters, right? Good humor and amazing acting as well. Looking at our characters here, you got Peter Quill, Gamora, Groot. They're all great. Drax and Rocket, they're great. Nebula is our villain in this movie, at least for the start of it, and she's a pretty good villain as well. I do enjoy her a lot. Then of course you got Yondu as well. He's definitely villainish, and then Ronan is our major villain of this movie, and he's pretty good here as well. Next up is going to be 14, Avengers: Age of Ultron, with a score of a 91. So the critics gave this a score of 76, and the audience 82. I don't know why they didn't enjoy it that much. I mean, probably they're just trying to compare it to the original Avengers, and then when you do that, it doesn't necessarily hold up as good, but just judging it as a standalone movie, it is very, very good still. My personal thoughts here: great story, amazing characters, great villain, slow at times, which is like the only critique I have, but it's not like too slow where it's dragging. But at sometimes it's a little slow. And there's some very deep emotional aspects of this movie. Getting into our characters, we have our original 6 Avengers: Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, Hulk, Thor, and Hawkeye. Then some other guys here: Wanda Maximoff and Pietro Maximoff, who are kind of villainish at the start of it, right? They're definitely villainish. But later in the movie, they kind of get on the hero side, and then you got Pietro Maximoff / Quicksilver, who sacrifices himself in this movie. that definitely adds into our emotional aspect, right? It was crazy. Then you got Vision, who's cool. Ultron is an amazing villain. I love Ultron as a villain. You got James Rhodes, and you got Nick Fury once again, which everybody loves Nick Fury, except for one particular project we'll talk about later. But next up is going to be number 13, Thor Ragnarok, with a score of 91.5, critics a 93, audience 87. I'm kind of in the middle there. Definitely lean more towards the critics, but again, they're not too far off from each other anyways. This was, again, my original headcanon, kind of like with Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel. My original headcanon when I watched this is that it is a top 5 movie, which, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's came out, again, since then that are better than it. But at the time, it honestly was very, very good, and I loved it a lot, and I still do very much love this movie a lot. My personal thoughts: amazing story, amazing characters, great humor with a great villain. Looking at our characters here, you got Thor, who's great, and I love short hair Thor with like the warrior paint on his face, dude. He looks so cool in this movie, dog. You got Loki, who's definitely villainish once again, but he's not our main villain. Hela is our main villain, and she's great. You got Valkyrie, I love her. Surtur, who's another villain, kind of paired with Hela, but he's cool as well. And then you got Hulk in this movie, which was kind of weird to see Hulk in a Thor movie, but basically ever since Captain America Civil War, they don't like to do solo hero movies without adding in another side character that we know and love, like Hulk in this movie, like having Iron Man or Doctor Strange in the Spider-Man movies. We'll talk about some of this other stuff in a little bit, but yeah, moving on from this movie, you got number 12, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, with a score of 92. Critics gave it an 85, audience an 87. So critics did not like this one as much as the first one. They still, very much enjoyed it, but they definitely thought the first one was better than the second one, and I disagree. Looking into my personal thoughts here, great story, great mystery, or good mystery at least. Amazing characters, once again. Good villain, it is emotional, and it is very funny. All the Guardians of the Galaxy movies are pretty funny, and that's part of why I do enjoy them so much. That's part of why a lot of people enjoy them so much. But looking into our characters here, we got Peter Quill, Gamora, we got Baby Groot now instead of Groot, which he's adorable. We got Drax, we got Rocket, we got Nebula as a hero this time. And then we have Yondu, which makes a sacrifice in this movie, which definitely adds to the emotional aspects. You got Ego, who is kind of like a villain twist, because at the beginning we don't necessarily know that he's a villain, but you can kind of guess. But yeah, he's Peter Quill's father. Then we eventually find out that he killed his mom and basically killed a lot of people. So he's not a very good person, right? Then we got Kraglin, and then we got Mantis, who's also introduced in this movie. Number 11 is Thunderbolt. I gave a score of a 92.5. Critics gave it an 88. Audience gave it a 93. So pretty much thoroughly enjoyed by everyone that watched it, or at least most people that watched it. And somehow it still really sucked in the box office. I mean, I guess people just didn't have much hype. I really didn't see much hype for this movie, but I personally was very hyped to see it. But looking into my own personal thoughts here, great story, amazing characters. I love all these characters from the previous projects they're in, at least for the most part. Good action, good mystery, and a good villain. Looking at our characters, we got Yelena Belova, Bucky Barnes, John Walker, Ghost, Taskmaster, and Red Guardian. And again, I loved all these characters here from previous movies, except John Walker. I mean, he was in a movie. He was in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the TV show, and I did not really like him in that. But you're also not supposed to like him in that one, so it kind of makes sense. And then we also have Bob /Century, who's our villain, and then Valentina Lego de Fontaine. No idea if I said that right. I'm kind of trying here. But she's also a villain in here, and she's really good. Number 10 is Spider-Man Homecoming with a score of a 93. Critics gave it a 92. Audience gave it an 87. And I gave it a 93. I mean, definitely right there with the critics. A little bit higher than the audience, but I mean, it's a Spider-Man movie. I feel like the baseline for a Spider-Man movie has to be at least a 90. Moving on to my personal thoughts. Great story, amazing cast, great villain, great action, and good humor. I love the story of this movie. The cast, of course, is amazing. We'll get into that right now. Spider-Man, obviously, Tom Holland's great. MJ, again, Zendaya's great. Vulture, he's a really good villain in this one. Actors solid as well. Liz is kind of there. She's cool. Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr., great. And then Ned, of course, I already mentioned this earlier, but I love Ned as an actor. And again, the story behind this, it's a Spider-Man origin story, but it's different than what we've seen with The Amazing Spider-Man or from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. It kind of takes its own turn with having Iron Man mentor Spider-Man, which I love. I love it. Number 9 is going to be Captain America the Winter Soldier. With a score of a 93.5, critics gave it a 90, audience a 92. I'm just a slight step ahead of both of those guys there, but overall relatively around the same number. My personal thoughts: amazing story, amazing cast, amazing villain, good mystery, and it's definitely emotional at times. So looking into our cast, we got Captain America, Steve Rogers, he's great. Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes as our villain. He's an amazing villain and is a great actor as well. We got the Falcon here with Anthony Mackie, he's great. Black Widow, of course, Natasha Romanoff, she's great. Scarlett Johansson, she's great. Nick Fury, which, again, who doesn't love Nick Fury if we're not talking about one particular project that we'll mention at a later date. And then, of course, we have Alexander Pierce as another villain in this movie. Number 8 is going to be Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness with a score of a 94. Critics give it a 74, audience an 85. I'm definitely a little bit ahead of both of those people, but I adored this movie. I also, love the characters in this movie more than most people, which we'll get into in a little bit. But my personal thoughts here: amazing story, amazing cast, amazing villain, great mystery, and it definitely has a horror feel to it, which I adored. It was awesome. My characters here in this movie: Doctor Strange, I love Doctor Strange. Wong, I love Wong. Scarlet Witch, dude. Scarlet Witch might just be my favorite character in the entire MCU. And I love seeing her as a villain right now. She was an amazing villain. We got America Chavez introduced here. I like her as well. Sinister Strange is another villain, and he's kind of creepy, which is kind of awesome. And then you got the Illuminati, they're definitely villain-ish, but they're not really a big part of this. But it was definitely a big thing that they were in it, but they're not really a big part of the movie. Number 7 is going to be Captain America: The First Avenger with a score of a 94.5. Rotten Tomatoes, critics give it an 80, audience give it a 75. I don't really know why they didn't like it that much. It's I don't understand. This movie was amazing. They're like, it's good. It wasn't great, but I'm just like, are you guys crazy? This movie was amazing. I think this is probably the best origin story from any superhero I've ever seen. I haven't seen all the superhero movies, but from all the superhero movies that I have seen, this is the best origin story. It might not be the best first movie of the franchise, the original Spider-Man movie is probably better than this movie, but I think this has a better origin story, if that makes sense. Looking into my thoughts here: amazing story, great cast, amazing villain. It's a great war movie and has emotional depth. This is a great war movie as itself. It doesn't have to be a superhero movie. It can just be a war movie, and it works very well. Getting into our characters here, we got Captain America, of course, Peggy Carter, Bucky Barnes, Abraham Erskine, which is the scientist behind Super Soldier Serum. Got Chester Phillips, and we got Red Skull, which is an amazing villain in this movie. And definitely some emotional aspects when we think Captain America is dead. Peggy thinks he's dying, right? We also think Bucky Barnes is dead at times. Some really good stuff happening. Next up is going to be number 6, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. With a score of a 95, critics gave it an 82, audience a 94. I'm definitely right there with the audience. Critics, come on, man. 82 is still fine, but I don't know how the critics think that this is the worst Guardians of the Galaxy movie. That's crazy, right? My personal thoughts: amazing story, great cast, good villain, Rocket backstory, which was extremely emotional. We also have some other emotional moments in this movie. If you did not cry your first time watching this movie, there is something legitimately wrong with you. Our characters. We have our main characters once again: Peter Quill, Gamora, Baby Groot, Drax, Rocket, Nebula, as well as other people like Mantis and Kraglin, again, who are main characters. Then we have Adam Warlock, who's definitely villainish in this movie. He starts out as a villain, Then he ends up saving Peter Quill when we think he's going to die, so that's cool. High Evolutionary is a solid villain. Not great, but he's still pretty good. Then we got Lila and the Floor, who are some friends from Rocket's backstory, which is a very, very sad backstory. And once again, I definitely cried first time watching it. Like, if you don't cry first time watching this movie, once again, like, there's something wrong with you. Number 5 is going to be Captain America Civil War. With a score of 96, critics gave it an 89, critics gave it a 90, audience gave it an 89. I'm just a little bit higher than both of those, but this was an amazing, amazing movie. And let's get started on to why. My personal thoughts: an amazing story, an incredible cast, amazing action, a great villain, and it is definitely an Avengers film. It doesn't have the Avengers branding, but it's an Avengers film. We have 12 main characters of this movie, right? Like, this is an Avengers movie. I don't know why it's called Captain America Civil War, but it definitely works either way. Our characters here. This is Team Captain America, because we have Team Captain America basically fighting against Team Iron Man in this movie. So we got Captain America, Bucky Barnes, Falcon, Scarlet Witch, Ant-Man, and Hawkeye. All great characters. And then we have Iron Man, Black Widow, Vision, War Machine, Black Panther, and Spider-Man. Also, all great characters. Also worth noting, Black Panther and Spider-Man make their MCU debuts in this movie. That definitely helps it rise up the ranks, in my personal opinion. And then, of course, we have Zemo as our villain of this movie. He starts the movie off by killing the King of Wakanda, T'Challa's father, right? And basically everything else, the rest of the plot of this movie spirals out from that. Number 4 here is going to be Spider-Man No Way Home with a score of a 97. Critics gave it a 93, audience gave it a 97, and I would say the audience and myself probably overrated a little bit because of nostalgia, but it is still an amazing, amazing movie, right? Looking into my thoughts here, it's a great story, incredible cast, great action, incredible villains, good humor, and very, very emotional. Some of the emotions from it you won't understand if you're not familiar with the previous Spider-Man stuff, like with Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire's previous Spider-Man movies. You might not understand all of the emotional aspects of this one. Specifically, when Andrew Garfield Spider-Man saves Zendaya, MJ, from falling, because he didn't save his own MJ. He tried to save his own MJ, and she died. So it's like, him being able to save this MJ, bro. Like, that doesn't bring tears to your eyes, or at least definitely kicks your heart, bro. It's like, that was awesome. Looking at our characters, we of course have the 3 Spider-Men, right? We got Ned, we got MJ, and we have Doctor Strange in this movie, which I love Doctor Strange. And then we also have Aunt May, who delivers the, with great power comes great responsibility line, which is kind of cool to see coming from the aunt as opposed to the uncle. And then we have all of our villains here with the Lizard, Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Sandman, and Electro, which, again, just a bunch of really, really good villains. Number 3 is going to be Avengers Endgame with a score of a 98. Critics gave it a 94. Audience gave it a 90. I definitely have it a little bit higher than both of those, but we can pretty much all agree that this is an amazing movie. And I have it my 3rd best movie. So, it's amazing. Let's get into why. Incredible story, incredible cast, incredible villain, and extremely emotional. Like, if you say that this is your favorite MCU movie, I'm not going to say you're wrong, but I mean, yeah, like, number 3 is still really high on my list, but I don't really have a strong case for it being number 1, but I can see why some might. This was the end of the original Infinity Saga of the MCU, right? This is the end of the first 3 phases, which I and many other Marvel fans grew up on, right? It's amazing. Looking into our characters, we are loaded, right? I'm not even going to name all the main characters because there's too many to talk about. But we have Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hawkeye, Black Widow, and Hulk as our main 6 original Avengers who come back and play very much main roles in this movie, and we kind of close off a lot of their storylines, right? Iron Man sacrifices himself. Very emotional. Captain America goes back in time to live life with Peggy Carter. Pretty emotional, right? Hawkeye has to lose his whole family. Hawkeye struggles with losing his whole entire family, and then battling to sacrifice himself because Black Widow ends up sacrificing herself instead. Like, that whole dynamic was very emotional as well. And then the Hulk and Thor, they're just kind of there. They don't have much emotional ties because they're still kicking in modern MCU. But we got War Machine, Nebula, Rocket, Captain Marvel, Ant-Man as other main heroes, main characters in this movie. And then, of course, we have Thanos as our villain, which also, obviously, he's an amazing villain. Number 2, the original Avengers, with a score of a 99. Critics and audience both gave this a 91, which is obviously really good, but not quite as good as I have it. But I'm not going to change my mind. This was amazing, dude. My personal thoughts: incredible story, amazing first team up film. Like, this being the first Avengers movie might be part of why I overrated a little bit, but it's amazing. I adore it. Incredible cast, right? Obviously, and an incredible villain. Looking into our characters, again, our original main 6 Avengers: Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hulk, Black Widow, and Hawkeye. I love all of these characters. And then some more people: Nick Fury, which who doesn't love Nick Fury if we're not talking about one specific project that happens and we'll talk about later on in a later date. But we also have Mariah Hill, which she's cool. Phil Coulson, he's apparently so beloved that they wanted to make a show about this dude, and that lasted 7 seasons, so like, he's cool. And then we got Loki as our main villain, which is, Loki's an amazing villain. Loki versus Thanos as our top villain is actually a very close discussion. I don't even know which way I'd lean. And of course, number 1 is going to be Avengers Infinity War. So if you're not paying attention, my top 3 movies are all Avengers movies, which, might be a red flag to some people. They're like, oh, you just like it when everyone's in the movie. I'm like, well, yeah, I like all the characters, so being able to see all the characters at once is really cool. The critics gave it an 85. Well, sorry, I gave it a 100 because, it's the best movie, so a 100 out of 100 just kind of makes sense, right? And the critics gave it an 85 while the audience gave it a 92. 85 seems very low. Like, that shocked me to see that this one is so low, because I feel like the majority of people that I talk to, or the majority of rankings that I've seen, have this one as their favorite MCU movie, or at very least the top 3, right? So I don't know how the critics have it as an 85, but whatever. One critique I could have about this movie is that it could have been longer. It was already 2.5 hours long, but we didn't even get to see the whole first scene where Thor and Loki are trying to defend the Tesseract, which holds the Space Stone, and then the movie just starts with Thanos already defeating them and having the Space Stone. I would have loved to see that scene in that battle, but whatever. My thoughts aside from that: incredible story, incredible action, incredible cast, incredible villain, best finale of the MCU, and it is certainly an emotional movie. I think it has the best finale because the villain wins. At the end of this movie, the villain wins, which is obviously crazy, and I love it, right? Which is also why it's very emotional, because we're just like, wait a minute, half of all our heroes just essentially died. We're just like, what? That's crazy, right? I didn't necessarily cry from this movie because you just had to know that they were gonna come back in Endgame and win, but it's definitely emotional, for reasons, obviously. Right, our main characters, we have Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hulk, Doctor Strange, and Spider-Man. Love all these guys, right? Then you have Black Panther, Star-Lord, Scarlet Witch, Vision, Winter Soldier, and of course, Thanos as our villain. That's going to be it for this. I'm going to get out of the way here a little bit so you guys can see. But this is just a simple view right here for you guys, so you can look at all the rankings right here, 1 through 36. I'm not going to read it to you because I just did the whole thing, and if you really care, you can just take a picture and look at all my rankings from here. But yeah, that's going to be it for this. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think about this ranking, and make sure to stay tuned because I will have some other MCU videos coming out relatively soon.